Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Their mission is David was talking about it. I've been All right, let's get started with the presentations. So, Bill, you're standing in front of the camera. Your back is wonderful, but we're interested in the presentation. So basically we had 5 teams, and we had 4 of those teams had 5 participants, and 1 team had 3 participants. Is that correct? 2 participants? You're done at 2, so you lost 1. So do we have, is everybody in the room now? Or let's see, we're still trickling in. Whoops.
Let me go again. No, Jay, you sit here.
Okay, I just want to get the presentation going here.
You can do twice too. Control C and you can type exit or look at
All right. So before we get the presentations going, we've set up a little voting process here, and I'm going to ask all the people that were part of the teams to come by and pick up a set of voting tickets, which there's a white ticket, a red ticket, and a blue ticket. Okay. And so what we're going to do is see the presentations, the 5 presentations, and then at the end, you'll tear off, you'll detach the tickets, and you'll vote with the bottom portion, which is keep this coupon. So everybody will come by and they'll place the bottom portion of the coupon on the team, and you only get 1 ticket per team, and it's like first, second, third. And first is the blue tickets were 3 points, the red tickets were 2 points, and the white tickets were 1 point. And then we're going to tally it up at the end, and we'll determine the top 3 teams, basically. So that might not be clear, but we'll work it out. It should be clear as you go through there. So would everybody come through and pick up a set of tickets? Just walk by and pick up 1 set of tickets. No, it's per person. Yeah, go ahead.
Might mix it up.
Yeah, keep them in order. Perfect. We're kind of experimenting with a little bit of governance and transparency with this voting process. So, we had 25.
I heard voting doesn't work at a block.
No, this voting works. So we've got 6 pairs of tickets, or 6 sets of tickets left. That means we've got, what, 18 people still participating. Oh, one more? No. All right, so do we want to mix it up in terms of the order of presentations? All right. Okay.
Just make it alphabetical.
Yeah. We'll just go in order. Okay. So the first presentation will be Dam Chain. So take it away, Dam Chain. Yeah, we do have an HDMI. Let's see. Hang on.
Public maybe just
Here.
presentations.
Fancy way.
Yeah, adapter.
Oh, it's just straight HDMI. Cool. And then maybe I'll plug it in. Okay, let's do it this way.
Yeah, because before I see stuff, I was using
Okay.
video.
See if that works.
Phone platforms. We got TX2, which sounds like a much faster.
With any luck at all? Oh, awesome.
Okay.
Nice graphics.
That's the default wallpaper. Is this part to go to this screen? It's not. Oh, did it go there?
I was just looking at those
Flickr.
computer vision algorithms.
You just mirror your display.
So if it's going to be able to capture video, do vision detection.
What happens if I don't want to go to?
You want to mirror? Go into your preferences there, it should be under the video display stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we know by now. Season.
Oh my God.
Yeah, we can do it, yeah. Identify the intersections on these two.
That's just,
Yeah, that's almost got to be careful. Like, they, what was doing that with one of the police departments, so it was detecting like sand dunes that's being used.
Hello, we are Dan Chan. I'm Julian.
Ashish.
Jay.
Darren?
Suresh.
All right, well, this is Asish's idea. I'll let him go on from here.
All right. So, first off, what do you guys think when you see this envelope?
Stamps.
Stamps? Anything else?
Secret of wax.
Secrets. Great. So these days you can't go through any news and not read about memos, documents, people changing stuff, people hiding stuff. So the bottom line is we are seeing a lack of trust in the government institutions and corporate world about how they manage their documents. So we have come up with a digital asset management chain, which is going to be, next slide, secure, transparent, and auditable way of managing documents. Why we need it? As I just explained, there is a lack of trust. The auditing process is time-consuming and complex. So if there were to be a court order, which requires certain documents to be audited, it's difficult. Companies are not upfront sharing their document. Basically, investigative agencies have to go after them. And same goes for government. And then there is a data integrity issue also, where there are concerns that data has been changed or modified, or is this the right file or not, all those kind of things. So we hope we have a solution. So next slide, how? So what we are going to do is we are going to have a hash code of the document on the blockchain. And off the chain, we will have a document store and metadata about that document stored. And now the users of the application, there'll be basically two types of users. One who will actually add content there, and then of course the other who can retrieve that content. Now the process is when a user uploads a document, not only the document will be uploaded, but also a unique hash will be generated for the document. And if the document is changed or revised, there will be a new copy created, and the revision information will be stored in the blockchain as well. So in a nutshell, you can revise a document, you can change, but every time we are tracking the whole history. Who changed it? What's the version number? Who accessed it? All that is being stored. So there is no scope of, somebody changed it, or we don't know if it's the real document or not, or what is the history of the document. We are storing that. Now, to talk about the technical implementation, I'll hand it over to Julian. Go ahead. Yeah. You can.
So I did sketch up a little bit of a contract that you guys can check out right there. Actually pull it up. You can look at it. So it's very simple. I whiteboarded up something much more complicated, but I narrowed the scope just to have something to show. So we just have an organization struct. And right now, we have name and list of documents. You could abstract this, and instead of just storing the hash, you can also store like an integer using it as like an enum, so you can use it with IPFS or Swarm, just keeping a different index for each one, and expanding it out to some other services as well. And documents in the whiteboarded out version also have another property, a list of other integers, which are uint, or the same bytes 32 or uint 256, which is another document. So you can represent the history of the documents that way. But the general structure is you add documents, and as long as the signature is of the account or the organization address, then it will be added. So we can through our listen. So using the contract, you have a message. So you're going to hash the document that you want to put into this, and then you just do a signature on it using your account. So we have hash and account. This is how you would use that with Truffle console. Just we're computing the hash of Cactus Wren.
You qualify.
And so we're going to use.
Yes. Yeah, can I interrupt? So this is the use case here is we have the image of Cactus Wren, which is an official image, let's say published by government of state of Arizona. And when we upload it to our system, we'll create a hash, which will be shared by the government. And anybody looking for that image can take that hash and search in our system. So that's what he'll demo, how.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right. And our algorithm requires an account. So I'm just using Web3 ETH accounts, just the first one. All right, here's a quick JavaScript that will get the signature in a way that we can easily work with it for EC verify or EC recover. So we just take the address and the hash, and we won't get the implementation details. So this is what the signature looks like, passing in the account hash we defined earlier. We get back this nice stuff. All right, so creating the organization in the contract, we just set an organization name. So it just sets the sender's in the mapping, since the sender's name according to the address to FBI in this case. So valid transaction, adding a document, very simple. Now we put in the account unnecessarily. That will be cleaned up a little bit. But you get the account, the message, so the document hash, and then the corresponding elements for the signature. And I left out accessors and realized too late. But I also accidentally left verify signature public, so we could just call that and see that that even worked. And it did. Any questions?
So did you guys have a chance to do any research to see if there are other projects out there that are doing something akin to this, or?
Yeah, so I did check, there's another product called Media Wallet out there. So they're doing digital assets management and walleting of those documents. So, I mean, we didn't go deep at it, like, I just did a quick check. So, but there is a huge application, especially on the media world of any audio, video type of files that requires like real signature. And a use case could be like, if you have a player and the player you are ready to play a Star Wars and you want to ensure that it is an authenticated digital asset published by Lucasfilms or whoever that is, you can actually validate that it is a true digital asset. And maybe as a way to pay them out, you could pay out a coin or something in future that if you're buying a true one, you actually get some money back or something. You could build out an application like that.
And even Kodak has recently come up with Kodak Coin, right? So the idea there is they're gonna, a photographer can, copyright their image by publishing on the chain, and that's the idea. That this is a big problem. Piracy in the, photograph world is a big problem all over the world. So Kodak is coming up with Kodak Coin too to address that.
So in this idea, effectively what's happening is you have some data, some document, you're hashing the document and you're signing the document, and then you're submitting this into that smart contract in some kind of way. Have you guys thought about what kind of mechanism is required to retrieve and where that might be retrieved from? Because for instance, you're using a SHA-3 hash here, and I had to deal with some of this even just this previous week, where I had to think about, okay, what if that kind of hashing algorithm breaks and we need to switch to something else?
The whiteboarded out version.
How does this struct need to actually adapt to the different types of hashes? For instance, IPFS uses something kind of innovative called multi-hash, which allows you to kind of encode the beginning part of the hash string, what type of, using it's like a CID, which identifies the hash that follows it. However, if you try to do something like that in a smart contract, you need to make sure whatever structure you're building is able to adapt to a non-fixed length size.
So there is, of course, like when you think about a user, you can have a user credentials or an organizational credentials as an add-on value to the actual hash, and you can maintain your own repository or an environment where you're mapping those things. So if I'm going to a digital site and purchasing a digital asset, you are not only giving the hash, the key, but you're also giving the user identification key of some kind. So it's basically multi-pronged. You could do a combination. So if another user comes with the same name or some IP, we could do a combination validation so that the asset is validated as well as the user who purchased. So if I buy some asset and somebody else comes in, you are having a dual authentication to kind of validate so that that asset actually belongs to them.
Yeah, and also that whatever that data structure or that data store that is storing that data, it needs to be a decentralized construct, because if it's not, and you're querying a centralized construct, that centralized construct can say anything is this hash. Right. It just identifies all queries of this hash type to some malicious data. So have you guys thought about how you might store this?
Julian? We were planning on it.
I know you said Swarm or IPFS.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
But that was using an additional property, so weren't implemented here. Just there was a lot more in the whiteboarded out. It was just too much to do. But so the on-chain part is this solid contract, but this stuff is off-chain, so it can be a bit more dynamic, and you can have different implementations that interact with that. Different use cases can use the same back-end contract, and so we were going to demonstrate an actual, really low-level version of this off-chain about getting development environments set up for everyone. Was
just didn't work out.
Yeah. Is this something you guys think you would be interested in continuing to work on the prototype?
Yes.
Did we talk about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
I would recommend, just so you're familiar with prior art, if you continue on that, look up RFC 3161. So that is without the blockchain, that's talking about timestamping authorities back in 2001. And it's the same idea, just minus blockchain. So
What was that?
Yeah, the blockchain's a big deal.
RFC 3161. There's probably work that predates that by a decade or two. But they have a huge write-up, so I would look through and just see everything that was already considered, make sure your technology implements, or at least considers what's been done already, so.
Thank you.
So last question, most important, is DAM an acronym?
Yeah, it's for digital asset management.
Okay.
Yeah, digital asset management.
I thought it might be. Thank you very much, that's awesome. All right, next up, Jake. Jake Keene. You guys need to plug in? You got an HDMI?
Yeah.
There should be an HDMI.
Howard.
So we are Jake. I'm JP.
I'm Ariana.
I'm Emmett.
I'm Kevin.
Andrew.
And Emmett will start with the presentation.
Okay. So we in this country have had a huge deviation from the original plan, which is a nation for the people, of the people, and by the people. And these days, things seem to be by the corporations or people with lots of money. And so we set out to do something to try and fix that. And so what we came up with was what we call the inclusion platform. And so it's basically trying to empower public consensus through a tamper-resistant, decentralized polling network. The point is obviously to hold politicians accountable to the desires and expectations of we, the people. And it also will help to disentangle partisan politics. So right now, if you're a Republican, you're expected to vote for everything Republicans vote for, whether you care about those specific items or not. And this will give us an opportunity to vote for everything independently. It's not a voting platform, though. It's simply about polling at this stage. And the first question really is why do we need to do it on the blockchain? There's groups out there like Gallup and Pew who do polling already. And I think the question really, or the situation really is that trust in government is at an all-time low. Trust in news media is at an all-time low. Trust in authority figures in general is at an all-time low. And so we are using blockchain because we can decentralize the process. We can make everything open source and available to people who want to view the data. They can have access to the data. And also having it distributed makes it tamper resistant. So the basic idea is people will sign up. Anybody who has a driver's license can make an account, and they'll get an account number with an address similar to what you might get for a Bitcoin wallet. And there'll be a computer version and an app version. App version will be kind of like Tinder, and then you swipe left or swipe right as these questions pop up. And initially you'll get 100 questions as you sign up, and then each month 20 questions or so to keep the fatigue down to a minimum. And the questions will be bias vetted by psychologists. And so the reason to do by driver's license, even though we know we'll catch a lot of people who aren't of voting age, or maybe they just shouldn't be able to vote because they're from out of town or whatever, we really want to catch everyone who's in the community. It's about getting the community's idea. Plus, those people should be a small percentage, right? So you'll have the two options for access, and then just different membership levels to this data, right? So we'll have a general membership, which will be basic stuff. You know, it'll tell you basics about the president, or Medicare or healthcare, or whatever topics you have to be interested in. And then you can sign up for specialty groups. Maybe you're a doctor or something, and you want to know more about specific healthcare items. Or you're an ecologist and you want to know more about the environment. You can choose, and you'll answer more questions and get more data. And then the next level down from that is all collaboration forums, where people can speak together and form groups or communities in their communities. And then we'll have power users within those groups who can provide new questions and really facilitate more discussion about various topics within those individual groups. So the idea really is that this platform will allow people to see what other people are thinking rather than hear one interest group or another interest group telling us what other people are thinking. I think that will have multiple impacts. One is that we can just follow. You can follow, I'm a doctor personally, so I'm very interested in healthcare and what the country is going to do for healthcare. So maybe I'll follow healthcare, and we'll talk about single payer systems. And maybe only 40% of the country believes in that, we should have a single payer system. But I can watch it change over time. And when it hits 60%, I'll get an alert that says, hey, it's at 60%. What do you think? Do you want to do something to try and help it move it forward? And when it gets to 70%, 70% of people believe in this idea, maybe we'll put more pressure on politicians. Politicians will have a hard time saying no when 70% of everyone out there is saying, we really kind of want to move in this direction. And then you get to 85%, I suspect you'll get community leaders and people who are more willing to stick their neck out there and really move forward on something. Whereas right now, if you try to push an agenda that wasn't part of what's established, they're going to crush you. So I think it will provide a lot of support for that end. The other question is, how do we monetize this? And so there'll be data. So all the data will be out there and available, but we will do sophisticated analysis of the data. And for basic users, they'll get basic data, but people can buy more sophisticated analysis. And then when people want to publish this data, then they would have to pay to use that in their articles or what have you. And so the other part of this is we're thinking, how do we get people to buy in? Personally, I think that re-empowering the people is enough of an incentive to try and want to go ahead and take ownership and make these votes. But maybe there's a place for giving rewards of some kind, giving it some tokens to people to incentivize them to go ahead and make these judgments. And so the last part is we got this cute little bird here, and this was our first poll. So we'll let Kevin will talk about the technical aspects.
All right, I'm going to take over and show a quick little demo application we have. Get it to pop up here. Okay, so we have built a quick website to give a very basic demonstration of how it would be. This is assuming that you've already created an account and you've logged in, and here you're presented with some questions that you can vote on. Now you'll notice the first question, do you know what a cactus wren is? We thought about the idea that maybe you can take this question, and if there's a central authority creating these questions to ask about it, well, what happens when they go and they change the question later? Well, we take that question and we hash it right here so that once you add this into the blockchain, you really can't go and change it to something else and say, just kidding, we were asking if you don't like that, or, you not know what a cactus wren is. So that keeps it so that you cannot change this question later. So let's go ahead and vote here. Sure, I know what a cactus wren is. So here is basically what we add into the blockchain. We have an index here. We have our date as a timestamp. The user address is associated to you and you alone. So this is a way that we can keep it to where your identity can be kept secret because you're not putting out that this is my driver's license and here's where I live and my name and all that. But you are identified in the system, and you cannot come in and later say, you know what, I'm going to take that person and I'm going to create a new answer for them. We add the user address there, the question address to identify that, and then your response is a 1 for the yes. So if you tried to come in here and generate it again with a different answer, you would invalidate the blockchain, so that transaction would never get through to the system. The consensus would override it.
So we have about 5 questions here. We'll just run through them real fast. Do you think the cactus wren should be protected? Yes. Do you think the cactus wren is sexy? We debated this. Consensus between us 5 was yes. It's very sexy.
I said no.
Okay, well, I think it was a majority vote here. We have to send it to the system.
To another cactus wren, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, teach your own. Maybe you were looking at the wrong cactus wren. Would you consider donating for cactus wren protection? Well, maybe we're broke, so no, I wouldn't want to do that. Would you consider volunteering? No, I want to go home and play Xbox, so nope. You finished, congratulations. So there is our full blockchain that we've created there, and it is immutable, it cannot be changed. I think a good point that we brought up before was that you can actually add more into this, including what kind of credentials you might have, so that once you start analyzing this data, you can actually get a higher perspective of, say, all right, not only does all the random people think that, you know, it's 50-50 on climate change, but here's the real number of climate scientists believe, because there's not even a consensus today on whether or not scientists really believe climate change is real, which is kind of ridiculous that there's truth out there and we don't know what it is. So I think that this is a good way to actually validate and make that information available.
Cool. Did you use Naive Coin for this?
We did use Naive Coin.
Awesome. That's really, really great work.
Yeah, it's all running in the background. It's actually validating. You can actually go and you can create one of these, say yes, and I'll come in and I'll try to hack it. So we'll set a response to 0, right? And then the next time you run this through, we get a blockchain is invalid.
Did you use Sub-G coin or Naive Coin?
Oh, it was Sub-G coin. Sub-G coin, yeah.
That's cool. That's really, really slick.
Yeah.
So a couple things I noticed. This is all really awesome. If you want to kind of move it forward, it's the one thing I note is that it kind of looks like if you're only storing like 1 question per block, you're going to get some pretty large blockchain sizes. And also your kind of notion that each person is answering these individually, like you have 5 questions here, 5 questions answered by another person, 5 questions answered by another person. A data structure which might be efficient for this would be something like a Merkle tree or a sorted Merkle tree, or i.e. Merkle-Patricia tree, which effectively you take all these 5 questions and you kind of store them in some kind of sorted tree-like structure.
Right.
And then you take the hash of all of that content, called a Merkle root, and then you submit that to a global ubiquitous blockchain. And then you can use that Merkle root to go and look up the rest of the stuff on a local running data structure.
That'd be a good idea, because there could be a whole section of questions, not just completely random, you know, here's a question about a cactus wren, and now here's about global warming, and blah. There could be a series of questions in there, and it all builds up into one final hash that goes in there.
Can it be done on Ethereum in an Ethereum contract?
This, yeah. So I mean, the what I would do if you were doing something like this is store all of this in like a non-blockchain structure in like a Merkle DAG, and then submit the Merkle roots into an Ethereum contract.
Okay, got it.
That's dope. This is so great.
Very nice.
Any questions?
Is this something you'd be interested in continuing to build on the project?
Obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it'd be a great thing to have. Yeah.
Yeah, we had like 11 things we were choosing from to do the project on. This was like, this is a real world thing that we can do right now and make a difference. So
this is cool. So can we use this to vote on the
we should use it to vote, yeah.
We need another hour.
It should add 6th question. Do we win?
Oh yeah.
Of course we'll trust it.
I'm the only one with the blockchain though, so it's not really that fair.
Really, really awesome. Any other questions?
I think we could use this in the public government, like, get rid of primary elections and some of those things that we shouldn't be doing, and just do it in a new way.
Yeah, so that's a great point. This is exactly what we're trying to create out of this event, is to get some real use cases that we might be able to put in front of people and see, what do you think about this?
Great.
Does this extra added element of integrity and trust, is that worth it for you?
Mm-hmm.
So.
And this would be good as a starting place because we had talked about, voting on the blockchain. And well, how are you going to get government to start saying we're going to use that? And well, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And you may say, hey, all the polls said that this, and people will say, well, the polls weren't right. They're making those up. Those are biased. If you get a real immutable consensus here, then there's no arguing whether or not those polls are real numbers. And if you see a misrepresentation of what's happening in the voting systems and what people are actually doing in this polling system, maybe you start to say, hey, there should be a change here because I don't think that the voice of the people is really being heard.
Is it possible to have a hanging shard on the hash?
If you're in Florida.
Oh, if you're in Florida, okay. Just kidding.
All right. Will be disenfranchised individuals because they may not understand the concept. Right?
That's true. All right, thank you very much. Awesome. All right, next up is Crypto Vultures. You guys need HDMI? Yeah. There's a plug right there.
All right, before we begin, we'd just like to say this is very, non-technical stuff. This is just a concept of what we're trying to accomplish. So no code is being presented. This is just a concept.
You had it from, there it is.
And the co-anchor, see if you can improve the percentage.
You wanna?
No,
there we go. Nice.
Take it away. Let's present this. Didn't do much. Okay. No. Okay, let's start. So the idea behind this project was so if you go by the stats, the number of deaths considered with a normal car accident is like 40,000 every year in US, and if you similarly go with the firearms, so they come out like 30,000. So I think that that's a big number, and we need to take an initiative in the firearm industries to keep a track of how these arms are moving across from people to people or from sellers to people. So nowadays, you get a license for your motor vehicle, and that has an expiry date with it. But once you get a license for firearms, they are not like they are not enforced rules that make sure that you have the right knowledge of about how to use it, or the skills, or like the training with you. So I think blockchain can help us doing like keeping track of all these stuff together. And I think
So let's just get this out there. The goal of this is to make firearm purchasing much safer. So let's assume a couple things before we start. Let's assume that guns have unique serial numbers that can allow them for registration, and we can also work with the government to require registration on firearms. And we would need a user-friendly app that would allow the peer-to-peer transaction of firearms, that would allow us to view, background check and registration of the firearm as well. That being said, we would need 2 registries of data for this app, and we would need the registry of guns and their current owners, as well as a registry of potential consumers, buyer and sellers, and their education level. And the NRA, is the group that carries out all the education when it comes to this. And also this would hold the validity of the NRA certification as well.
Okay, so let's talk about the data. So we would need a verification from NRA about the owner. So the whole identity itself is a separate module, but you need some kind of identity to put that onto the blockchain. And specifically in this case, you need, I think the authority would be the NRA to bringing that to the system. And so you need, for bringing anyone to the system, you would take the resources from NRA. Then you would need an owner for a legal purchase of a gem, of a gun. And if the gun is not registered to someone else, you check. So you need all these 4 kinds of things, or like zero knowledge to mask privacy of owners. So these 4 are the major things that we thought would be required in the database. And then you would need smart contracts to verify whether the NRA education compliance is still good enough or has it expired. You need to verify buyer owner. You need to verify the registration of firearm, or you need to protect the personal information of buyers or sellers from improper use.
Okay, real quick, Kamal, to build off of that, we would explore the realm of zero knowledge proofs to add a privacy layer in a sense, but we're trying to determine the relationship between transparency of gun ownership and privacy of gun ownership. So that would be something that would have to be researched a little bit more.
Besides that, so what we were thinking of making it more like you can still buy a gun on a Craigslist. Like people are doing it. They are not doing it with authority or verification. They are just doing it. So if we provide them a platform where they can verify or check whether they are selling to the person is right or wrong, so it would be easier. So they would go through 4 checks, have complete. So this platform would check with 4 basic things: whether the person has right NRA training, whether his education level is up to date, whether a person is legal to buy or sell arms and use their digital IDs. So there would be some smart contracts required for each one of these to be more automated. And these, the 3 contracts that we have thought of are verification of NRA education compliance, buyer owner eligibility, and all these. We want these things to go automated so that every data that's out there can be verified directly, and owner or seller need not do much to check all these stuff, because they are anyways going to buy or sell. But if they get these kind of knowledge to them as soon as possible, it would be good for them. And so for the end user, we would be creating an app. So that app would be normal iOS or Android app that could be used for individuals to have a background check and registration. So it's more like add-on layer to the current system, where users can go to this system and check what all details about owner, buyer, guns are there, and use it for their for development of the whole community as itself.
Yeah. So to go off of that, this app would be free to download, but the management and the maintenance of the blockchain would have to be financed through the community or through the government. And we believe that we could just raise funds through cryptocurrencies to maintain this, and that would not be a big issue at all. So yes, how does blockchain make this better? So yes, transparency. The end goal here is to make gun buying safer. Safety, required to have the education to properly operate a firearm. And also it ensures that you own that firearm, that ownership can be transferred to another peer without having to go through a third party. And this is down the line as well. We could also look into the idea of tracking ammunition sales from manufacturer to consumers in a sense, and also just geo-tracking of firearms as well, because that would allow the community to see, the government to see, or whoever to see just movement of arms over over miles, over large distances. And also, why don't you talk about the Enigma?
Yeah, so with the geolocation, the thing is that we can't just put everything out there in public, like location of people. So I think what Enigma platform provide, it encrypts all the information using zero knowledge, not zero knowledge proofs, using homomorphic encryption. And so what it does is, even the data is encrypted, it still can be analyzed. Like you can run all the data analysis algorithms on that. But yeah, there are some limitations of the homomorphic encryption itself, like the time to do that encryption. But if those limitations are overcome, this could be a really good idea where your geolocation, like you can use this data to find out if there are like multiple weapons in a single area. So even though the identity of people won't be shared, you can just increase the security in that area because there are like multiple guns suspected in that particular area. So that would be great going forward with the IoT thing, where a geo tracker can be planted on each firearm device.
So yes, obviously the benefits of using this initiative, making firearms safer for the public, provide training, consistent training for everyone involved, as well as, just the peer-to-peer transaction value of firearms, right? We understand right now that, there are limitations to this idea, but, as the tech matures, as more things develop, as more things, get brought on board, that this could be very successful in what we're trying to accomplish. So yes, the next steps, right? It would be financing this project in a sense. So financing, and then just actual coding from this point, actually building the repositories, as well as figuring out all the necessary functionality and the necessary information we need to include in this.
Okay, cool. So that's the way. And questions for you?
Yeah, I think it is just smart to take it to NRA to take care of the problem as a person. So that idea was really cool.
Yeah.
Because we need support from them. Otherwise, even if we put this idea to, people won't accept it right away, because we need some enforcement from their side.
Obviously this is a very political issue, right? So we're trying to, we're just trying to make things safer. We're trying to make things more transparent. But also, privacy is a big thing with gun ownership as well. So there's that aspect that we can explore as well.
what do you think the first step would be to put this into a blockchain? Taking this kind of hypothetical idea and trying to transcribe it into a blockchain, what do you think would be the first thing you would need to do?
So first things that we need information from like sellers to like we need to enforce to sellers to put all their whenever a gun is put, so put that serial number into the blockchain itself. We can add an identity of a person using that. So so it would be a like key value pair between serial number and ownership ID of that person. And once that is there, so with the ownership, we can have multiple things. Like for each person, there would be an NRA certificate or the address and more like private details of them. So that identity management system could go like with that, with using that particular hash of that person. But yeah, we are thinking of using multisig to make sure that the identity of person can be revealed with at least 2 authorities. So either the seller or the owner, or the seller or the government come together, so that it's not like governments are using it like for identifying all the users of guns, or like seller is using them for all the. So it has to be multi-nation.
We also have to think too, like obviously current gun owners having their guns, right? But also just the value of implementing this technology to the new production of guns. So we're trying to figure out if we can, get, current gun owners to, accept this, and what would the easiest way for that to be.
Yeah. Like we can't put the current owners, but the future owners can be easily incorporated into this system.
Cool. All right, thank you very much. All right, N block. All right, excuse me, int block. Like intelligent block. Integer block, yes. Thank you for correcting. And by the way, as presenters, you are entitled to any.
The cable itself was loose. It was having problems. Let's try that one. Do this. Is it the right one?
My laptop.
There you go.
All right.
A little bit of loose connection.
Let's go to zero.
All right. That's cool.
Okay. Hello. So that's the project I shared with you this morning. And so we decided to give it a go. And the motto is get fit, get rich, BlockFit. Can we go to the next? Yes. Right. So it's been a while I was searching, and I was just seeing that like many children and many adults having like lots of screen time, but with none of this screen time and video games motivating a really healthy lifestyle. And I just read from BBC that for the average average gaming time for the children is around like 6 hours, 7 hours per day, and it was really scary. And there is another statistic that more than 661,000 Americans have kidney failure, and chronic disease that which is cause of the death for 170 million people around the world, and a lack of exercise is one of the major cause for the chronic disease. So now it's like our society, we have a sick care rather than a health care, and we have like the cost of prevention for us. We put a little money on prevention, and then we put more money on early diagnosis, lots of money on late diagnosis, and then the big cost would be when somebody dies and we lose a workforce and loved ones at home. And next one. So that's what we wanted to do, the smart investment, to put more money on prevention and more in early diagnosis, and the less money on like late diagnosis and detection. So kind of our it would be another way around. So with the app that we're going to present to you is you do activity and you gain you can earn Blackfit, and we wanted, like, our vision is to have effective incentive for healthy living. Okay, you go.
All right. So the idea is with this app, basically install the app on your phone, and as you move around in the app, your little character on screen right there moves around with you, similar to that of Pokemon Go. And as you move around, you earn Fit Coins, and as you get these cherries in the lower right, if you happen to go to a certain area and there's happens to be some cherries on screen, you collect those cherries, and that's your coin that you're earning. So basically, the more you move, the more you earn. All right. Yeah, so I mean, you could be moving around this entire building, and maybe in the opposite end of the building there's some cherries, and in the opposite end of the building is the cactus run. So basically you earn the coins in the very lower left. So that's one coin that you earn, and as you move towards that direction, you earn coins along the way. And then you move in the opposite direction towards the cactus wren, and you can spend those coins on the cactus wren. You can purchase a cactus wren because it's very valuable on the exchanges. You can go ahead and dump them there. All right, so essentially, as you're moving around, you're the miner. You earn the coin as you jog, you run, whatever. And so for every 5 steps, you get 1 Fit Coin. And to prove where you're at, unfortunately, we try to get around this. There's no easy way around this, unfortunately. You have to use a QR code to prove that you're at that location. So there has to be a QR codes around, or there has to be some sort of code you can scan to prove that you are where you say you are. And then, no, you're good. And then you can use the coins that you earn to buy cactus runs or whatever if you happen to walk the cactus run. So basically, the idea is you have to you walk around, you basically create an account, and you have a public key associated with your account. And for everywhere you walk, there's a geolocation associated with that area you're at. And that geolocation, there's a hash that's generated with that. So basically, you combine the public key with the geo hash and the QR code to generate the basically kind of the block hash, and that's how you earn your coins. So.
So one of the things was how to show that the person who's like doing the activity is like reducing the possibility to like having somebody hired to do the activity and you gain money. So we thought there is a biometric that is just our heartbeat is as unique as our fingerprint. So one of the things that we adding to our program would be to monitor the or biometric or health pass to identify the miner first, and then we will have this QRA codes, so we can have a screen wherever we want that person to reach during the mining, and they can be this can be randomly changeable, so that the person has to be there at that point that they're claiming that they are, and scan the QRA code to show that they really were at that location, so the hacker cannot make their own. And another idea was to creating the same inclusion and possibility for overweight people and the fit people to gain a block fit. And so based on the body mass index, we define proper goal for people. So if somebody very overweight and walking 10,000 10,000 steps, they can gain money as much as a fit person can run a kilometer. Sorry, I'm coming from Uruguay, so you cannot say, or 1 kilometer or 10,000 steps for.
All right, so this is just a screenshot from the demo we were trying to whip up, and that's our guy, and unfortunately wasn't able to. You can move around on screen using the keyboard, unfortunately, but I didn't have enough time to get the geolocation in there. So, and then right here on the left, the picture you see on the left side is actually you about to scan a QR code, and then on the right side is the QR code. Let's say it's the hash from the QR code, which would be reported back, so you can earn your coins. And
yeah, so we were thinking about the target group, and one of the target group that can benefit from this is an insurance company. And so people can show their block fit, and they can gain a reduction on the insurance cost. And I saw something similar with, I think it was something like an Apple Watch or wearable, and one of 2 or 3 companies, they give this wearable to their people, and whoever have certain amount of activity, they can reduce the payment for the insurance. So that's what we wanted to do with blockchain now. I think that's it.
All right, so.
And thank you for your attention.
Here's a little.
Yeah, this is what we can.
Yeah, unfortunately, just trying to take a HTML5 already pre-made JavaScript game and modify it, and woo! So, yeah, I try to make it work with your current geo coordinates, but unfortunately, just didn't have time to get that working.
It looks like you're already home by the URL.
Oh, yeah.
If this guy looks like he has a lot of gas, I was thinking the same thing. Did he burn it off?
Yeah. Yep. All right. So, questions? Yes.
Okay, so you guys aren't gonna like this, but there's already something out there like this. It's a great idea. It's a great initiative. It's a great incentive, but Sweatcoin is out there that's like this already, and it already has a marketplace where you can buy things with their coins. So in order for this to be successful, you're really going to have to differentiate the direction that this goes. I think it's great. Health is a very important part, and this is a great initiative.
Actually, just real quick about Sweatcoin, about that. Do they actually track where they're at? Can they actually prove where that user is at?
I know that I've used it just briefly. I don't use it anymore, but I know that there is people do use it, and you can buy things with it, but it does take a long time to earn sweat coins and to buy things with them. So
because because as we were going through planning this, we had a difficult time trying to figure out, okay, how do you prove that that user is actually moving? How do you actually prove that that user is moving? So that's extremely difficult. So I would like to know how they're doing. Do you know much about how they're tracking that?
There are some articles that's out there about them. It is a geolocation service, so they are doing something similar to this, but this can be really different if you differentiate.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing is I'd like to know how they're doing that, because spoofing geolocations is very easy. So spoofing your location is very easy, but yeah, anyway. Yes?
What's to stop me from taking my Roomba and tying my cell phone to it?
That was the challenge, one of the challenges that we talked about. As you said, spoofing geolocation is very easy. And that's why we came up with QR readers.
Yeah.
We unfortunately didn't have time to completely demo it, but that was what we thought. There are other ideas that were out there on the web, which is taking camera feeds, doing image recognition, and longitude, latitude pair comparison. But we didn't have time for that. But yes, geolocation was the challenge in this whole project.
Are you gonna put a QR code at the top of Mount Everest?
You'd have to get a lot for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So basically, having QR codes out in the wild is how you get around that Roomba scenario. I mean, that's really how you get around that. And then additionally, going back to Sweatcoin over here, like I said, because you could do exactly that, basically tie the Sweatcoin app to Roomba, let go around, and then the hacker just buys like 300 of these things. They're all moving around, earning Sweatcoins. Now suddenly the price of the Sweatcoin is going down because the hackers just dumping on the exchanges. So that's where we could differentiate ourselves massively. Yes.
I have another possible solution because I've been looking into it for a project I'm working on. The new iPhones have the built-in RFID chip readers, and so you can physically open the app and scan an RFID chip, and those you can like throw out of a plane. Have it like land somewhere, maybe, I don't know. But probably instead of making a bunch of, you can just like program a whole bunch of chips really easily.
Here's the thing though, if you do QR codes, you could easily go call up a shop and say, hey, you want people to show up to your shop? Just put this QR code, print this out, put it on your window, done. So it's significantly easier to do that, and then obviously it generates another stream of revenue for that. By saying, hey, if you print this out,
So one of my concerns would be, well, until you kind of said that, I kind of think that this might be something viable that you might look into. Was who exactly is giving these fake coins, and how is it worth anything? Because if you're just minting these coins for these activities, it's kind of silly. However, if you integrate this kind of shop-based idea, then perhaps these stores might actually pay into the program to be able to generate.
Yeah, that was the idea, basic idea to do that. And also, as I mentioned, that can be changeable. So by time, like this QRI can changeable by time. So you have to be at certain time at that store to get that credit.
Good point.
Yeah.
So that's limited.
Yeah, so we can both use it for trafficking, create traffic for the stores, and also for insurance company that they know people who do this certain activity, they have less chance of getting like chronic diseases that like it costs a lot for them.
Yeah.
So maybe that's
putting the physical world into the blockchain is typically pretty much impossible. Put anything physical into a digital construct. But what you can do is build a reputation-based system, and you can make data valuable based on the reputation of the thing that created it.
Yeah.
So
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, most businesses have a Wi-Fi, and if they're closed, maybe you can go there and like try to connect to their Wi-Fi or something, and it can see that your device tried to get that was there, within the range of their Wi-Fi.
That is something that we thought about, because there is cellular triangulation, there is Wi-Fi, and then there is also proximity sensors proximity sensors using Bluetooth that we can do. These accuracy of these varies. That was also something that we were considering.
But if it's like,
I was thinking about like the automated thing too, and I don't know, maybe you could like just try to stop a robot from doing this for them. You somehow integrate a CAPTCHA into it, where CAPTCHA generates the QR code, so you have to solve it too. I don't know.
I like that. Didn't think of the capture part, but I like that.
Yeah, because we did consider riddles. Are you there? Do you see the green tree?
Take a picture.
Did you talk about maybe continuing this project?
I think she actually is. So I think she actually does want to continue moving forward with this. I mean, this is your project essentially, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what. So my project before here was with something like a Pokemon Go, but I'm going to integrate that, and yeah, all the team is welcome to be with me, and we can continue together. Yeah.
Cool. All right, thank you very much. Last is, oh, here, you can have the candy.
Fitness candy.
A fitness candy, yeah, these are negative calorie candies. All right, so last team is Crypto Lab. So that's you guys. Well, you need the HDMI? Yeah, you've already been up there, so.
So you want to grab onto one side or the other, or maybe we'll just do one after the other, right? Yeah. Okay. All right, so, there was one more. Oh, we lost somebody. Huh?
You have to leave early.
Oh, okay, all right, fine. So, I'm Bill Maher, and
Ricky, Joseph, Roy.
yeah, and then there was another guy that left.
Doesn't matter now.
Okay, so this project, well, I guess was sort of my project that I wanted to figure out that, okay, let me back up. Gangplank just got funded, and they got funded by the city of Chandler to provide free space for a place where you can actually go in and you get a free workspace. You get, power, electricity, a toilet, printers, all of that for free in exchange for creating job prospects. So we're able to create, you could do whatever you need to in order to create more jobs. So they provide the funding to be able to create events, to be able to create the infrastructure necessary to be able to get people together, do co-working, and then actually start making money. But there's also a social component to this, which I thought was an interesting experiment, because if I could figure out a way for people to come in and interact more and be able to do more with each other and maybe kind of coerce them a little bit. So I thought that it would be a good idea to, instead of issuing script that says, okay, here, you got $1 to spend, what would you like to buy, and that sort of thing. I thought it would be interesting to do all of this stuff as an experiment using some kind of crypto coin, so that we would have, let's say, that what I was thinking was that the social experiment would be like this, that you have all these interactions with people, but it's not necessarily with money. And we could actually change the value of whatever the cryptocurrency was, like a science fiction movie, I suppose, that you get so many credits for doing this, and it may change over the time, what have you. So I thought it'd be an interesting experiment if somebody came to Gangplank, let's say, or any makerspace, and they'd be given so many credits, but you need to spend it. Let's say you walk in, you get 1 credit just for showing up, and you need 2 credits for being able to use a tool, which means that you have to help help somebody else or get them to interact with you. Have everybody heard of Steemit?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. The idea was the Steemit just by itself is about interaction, but it didn't include like the use of the tool, or let's say a tool involves some type of, that it costs more because it's got consumables and so forth. And you could use that by saying, okay, one good example would be you can gain a coin just for helping take out the trash. You can, donate something and get some coins back to have people help you with a certain project. So I thought that was an interesting experiment. I don't think I could do that on a real business. I think it'd be illegal actually, right?
No, it's not.
Is it? No, okay, so it's basically a barter type system.
Yeah.
And you still have to figure out how to play tax with it and all that. So I felt, okay, for us to kind of keep track of all that would be really hard. So if you had some kind of an automated Coinbase, crypto Coinbase system, you can have a whole ledger of what's going on. People would be spending it based on their capital that they get. And then you could find out how many coins you have or whatever electronically, as opposed to like gaining a whole bunch of wooden coins or something. So it would be better than the physical currency. And if we had an easy way of doing that and automated, and so like, for instance, first thing I do after we set up something like this, we'd added a component in where Alexa would have a job in here where if somebody walks in and she'd actually talk to you and you ask them, okay, who it is, how many coins do I have left? And she would have that all figured out, and the whole thing would just be audio. It'd be a classic ambient computing project for me. So there's a lot of other things that I can do that have people that I can then get other people to help out. And hopefully we can then use this at other maker spaces so they can then walk in and see, okay, this is a high-tech place. This is something that you want to come to. So what we did this time around was, given that situation, we can then create a very simple, like using the tools that we brought up today. All we needed really was a way of getting some initial coins and spending the coin and finding out how many coins we got. That's all we need right now to get started. And then you can go nuts about trying to figure out how you assign the coins, how many coins you need to get in the door, how many you need to leave. So now all of a sudden the whole social experiment is separate from the technology. Right? Does that make sense? Okay, so that's all I need to say. I mean, it's pretty simple what we were asking for. And you can imagine the complications that can come out of it. But the good news is that we have a way of accounting all this stuff. We have a way of dealing with all of the minutiae of, okay, what happened? People argue about what it means and all. That can all be, recorded and kind of, this is a very interesting social experiment. Okay, so the next step is we can have you come up and we can talk about how we implemented a demo of this. This way. What? Oh, yeah. I don't know. Oh, you got a Mac. Uh-oh. I'm gonna take it. Oh, he needs to. He needs to go from. Okay,
an adapter.
Screw up something else.
No. You want to just plug that in? Yeah. Oh, we're gonna need to do that. Yeah, that one.
Yeah, so just to show how simple this could be, we just implemented, well, you can go finish talking about what you've got so far.
Sure.
Yeah, got it?
Yeah, so what we're using, decided to use for this is Naive Coin, which is the implementation of cryptocurrency. And just for this demonstration, obviously you can use other cryptocurrency platform. So the basic idea using the boilerplate of the sample is you basically have the code that comes with the sample, and they're using Lambda, which is the functional coding, which is basically JavaScript's currying JavaScript in more details. But the high level, Lambda basically allows you to have a component type of function so that it's concise and immutable, as we all discussed that immutable is very big concept on, preventing from getting a chain to be undone. So just a quick snapshot of Ramda. So see my screen. So this constructor here is basically your initiator. And if you can see the from, to, and change. So the Ramda idea is very concise. What your parameter is exactly that. And you want to pass that as a block of JSON at the end, which is here. So this block here is under transaction. If you follow this sample yourself, is actually being pushed here as an array. And if you see this in a visual mode, you can see that I created a localhost 4001 as my port number. So this miner is basically what submits a block of transaction. And by having this post request to the chain, which is mining, is basically you want to verify what you're trying to add to successfully add to the chain. So quickly, when I hit send here, the outcome is see how it's added block 13?
Yeah, that's the status part of it.
So what you're basically trying to, in terms of what the idea of social capital is, this will be your way of adding data into the chain and keep that as the core of transparency. So even though there's the transaction here, the array is empty, but that's where it could be your data. It could be who, what, when, where, and other things that you want to encrypt. So in a nutshell, Naive Coin is one way to get this project lifted to to the real world, since Naive Coin is actually being part of the known platform out there. So in high level, that's the technology behind the social capital project.
Yeah, so what I was thinking was having, there's this kind of advertisement thing. I was thinking actually printing up an actual coin that's got a QR code in the back, but that's not the actual value number. It's not actually a coin where it goes into the blockchain and all that. It's actually just a record of the transaction. And then we could figure out how much your social capital is worth after the fact. So you can't really take that coin and go, okay, it's worth $1,000, because all it tells you is, okay, that person had that coin at that time and he did something. You can define whatever that is. So there's actually two layers. There's a transaction using these coins, and then they can then take it somewhere else and go, oh, cool. I just went and visited, Gangplank. I got this nice little coin here. You go check it out. They'll let you in using this coin. So I think that is fundamentally different than what you could say is, a coin. It's not like a fiat currency where I got a quarter and I can buy a Coke or whatever. This is just using the blockchain part of it and recording transactions that may or may not be worth anything. You just assign it the value after the fact, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So are you guys thinking about actually putting this into use and testing it at Gangplank, and maybe talking with the city of Chandler? But what's coming to my mind is maybe you could use some of these credits that people are generating at Gangplank to, use in other places in Chandler for city services, or park fees, or.
Yeah, exactly. I'd love to be able to make it so that it's not just Chandler, but we would have like different nodes all around the world at every one of these maker spaces. So somebody can walk in and say, okay, here's my coin, and you can slap it down. And then because this thing is all distributed, somebody would say, yeah, you're a real biggie over here according to this. You did all this stuff and you got 8,000 credits, man. And then everybody bowed down saying, okay, what a badass. So you could do it for that. You could do it saying, okay, I can get, a free meal, or you could, just hand somebody a coin saying, okay, you can get a free meal over here or help for whatever with a project. They're actually in the 70s, there was an actual TV show where it was all about this guy that didn't deal with money. It was just favors.
His name was Elio.
Yeah. So I was thinking of that. So I'm trying to use this system not so much for currency. Well, actually, it is currency, but it's social currency where you got to separate the value from the transaction, and then you can then play around. I mean, it's like, remember you guys? Did you see what was that? What was that movie? Well, actually, the Romans used to have a coin and it actually got all the way into like the current gangsters now, right? The mafia, they actually give you a coin when you do something really important for them. And I've actually seen a few of those coins. And it's to this day, you can actually still do that. If you get a hold of one of those mafia coins, man, it's worth a lot, as you've seen in the movie.
So 2 questions. Is this a permission or a public blockchain?
No idea. Obviously, it'd be public.
Does it run globally or does it run within a certain set of nodes?
I would assume we could just run it as a set of nodes for now. I mean, I don't know. I'm just thinking that, okay, how would you be able to do that as a social experiment?
Overall intention, is it supposed to be global at some point?
Could be, I suppose, yeah.
Okay.
Does it matter?
What if you made it so there's local and global? I think that's one of the biggest problems we have in our current monetary structure is we have national currency and municipalities don't have currency. And so we're stuck like paying the tax to the man, and we're stuck using their dollars, we're stuck with all their, whatever they put on for policies around the dollar.
Yeah, that is true. That's why I have it's like actually the second slide where if you have financial capital, I guess fiat currency, what is in the middle of all that, right? Well, I didn't fill it on my computer. Let me plug in my machine.
So yeah, you guys can do like municipal one.
And also
2 different coins.
Yeah, so if looking at I guess the libertarian version of this, anybody can actually put together their own social capital coin, right? So you could have one, let's say, of just using lasers. You could have one doing this or that, or it could be a million different coins that you can create. But the difference is that it doesn't involve any of this stuff. It's sort of like an open market, but you don't run this through a bank system where you can track it and all that. I mean, yeah, you can't. I mean, once if you're asking, okay, is the identity important or whatever? It could be. But all I'm saying is that you can separate the identity from the coin itself just by having, so when somebody walks into the worker space, you don't have to identify that person, but you may want to, but locally you can store it and maybe hash it or crypto or whatever, that identity, and then after that they can then say what it is.
So who issues these coins? How many are there? How is that number determined?
No idea. I'm sure it's going to change.
I've been studying financial systems for a long time, and one successful thing I've seen is that basically we have like a 5% natural growth rate of people. Like if we were just all had everything we needed and just were functioning normal, every year we would need 5% more currency to, if we were using money the way it's supposed to be used instead of upside down the way we're using it.
Yeah.
We're loaning it into the system instead of spending it in. So if you're making your own currency and you can spend it in, then having a 5% increase every year automatically is like pretty legit.
Well, I think you could grow the size of there's no limit to the size of how many coins you have. I mean, it's just social capital, right? I mean,
so maybe as people do things, it'll mine coin. So.
Yeah, I guess. But my point is that you use the analogy of not so much the financial coin, but the social coin, like the mafia coins, the old Roman coins that you couldn't divide. I mean, if you had like an American dollar gold piece, you used to be able to just, the blooms, you used to be able to cut them up and make them into quarters. That's where the word came from. But I don't know. I'd like to give it a shot. I don't know if somebody else has already done that, but I'm sure they did, but I don't know.
I just like to say something. I like the idea. I like the experiment. You know, when cryptocurrency and mass adoption really takes place, this is going to be, you know, a big part of society, right? Pretty soon, we just won't need to use banks. We just won't. So when mass adoption really takes place, we're going to be in charge of our own funds, and you know, digital capital is the next step for this.
Yeah.
So yes, this is going to be a very important part of society.
Well, the next step, thank you, is that you get to use your ticket capital.
Yeah, I got through in my slide.
Oh, very good. You guys.
Oh, there is the cactus
So thank you very much. So last part is to vote on teams 1, 2, and 3. So the idea is you tear your ticket in half. You keep the top that says ticket, or you keep the bottom. Okay, so you keep the bottom coupon, sorry, and take the top and then place it on one of the teams. Blue being worth 3 points, red worth 2, and white worth 1. So only 1 ticket per team. And then we'll tally that up and determine teams 1, 2, and 3. So if you don't mind just getting up and doing that.
You just put it on.
Yeah, just put it on the paper.
Yeah, it's up there.
So we had government documents, voting. This was the guns. This was the Fitbit, and this was the rewards for something. So just to recall this. This was the government documents. This was the voting. That was the guns and fitness and social capital.
Yeah, I'm just the Bill Maher at Gmail.
Oh, really?
Bill Maher.
Is that M-A-H-R?
M-A-R. It's a verb.
Oh, M-A-R.
Yeah.
He's not the HBO. Bill Maher. Yeah. Bill. He's not the HBO Maher. I know. That's what I said when I met him first. I go, I love Bill Maher.
I'm the Bill Maher.
I love Bill Maher. Awesome. All right.
This is the guns. This is the voting. This is the government documents. This is the fitness, and then this is the rewards for using things Eileen, could you help me tally this up?
Sure. Actually, real quick,
This was the voting.
Oh, yeah. And this was
the guns. This is the Fitbit, and this is the usage at Gangplank.
Oh, okay. Wait, which one is, how much is the right one?
2 points.
Oh, shoot, I did it backwards. I thought trying to get worth the least. So I put,
It does.
I can get my numbers.
No, that's cool. All right, interesting. Thank you. I know that was a little awkward, but part of this is an experimentation in voting and transparency and so forth. So, yeah, you can take pictures of this if you want to, and blah, blah, blah. So, Eileen is going to count. I don't know. I'm going to screen share. So Eileen is just going to count and then leave all the tickets. Now theoretically, if we had a lot of money on the line on this thing, this would all be auditable. So dam chain. You have a tally, sir? 3 for the red. Or excuse me, 3 for the blue, 5 for the red, and 4 for the white. And then Jake.
It's 572.
5 for the blue, 7 for the red, and 2 for the white. Well, just tell me if that's okay.
Yeah, so here's
Yeah, you can bet. Six whites. 6 whites. Okay, and in block. And what about crypto vultures? Okay. All right. So here's our tally. This is first. You guys ready? First place.
There's nothing on the screen.
There's nothing on the oh.
Oh, there's something up there, but it's not on.
Okay.
Rainbow wins.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Aha.
Everybody's
all around.
Awesome. Is that coming from the projector, or is that pattern? Did you choose that, or is that coming from the projector?
I don't know.
Paid extra tokens for that. That's the blockchain for color.
Okay. Okay, so first place is, let's see, Crypto Lab.
Really?
And excuse me, second place is Jake. And looks like third place is Inch Block. So there you have it. And Inch Block. Very close on top there. All right. So, part of what you can do is go up and audit this if you're interested. But that's
So you just take a picture, it's done, no, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes.
So, that pretty much concludes our event for today. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything you'd like to say as we wrap this up?
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
How would you allow this kind of a get together again?
So that's an interesting question. We're going to talk about this and see if there's a way to maybe put some structure in continuing this. Okay, so we'll be in contact with you about that. But the people that are part of the LLC that's actually producing this are interested in following up. So is that something you would be interested in terms of following up and?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, like continuing the project and maybe taking the project to the next level. Another possibility is we've got this videoed and possibly taking this to some of the local companies, some of the local public administration agencies and seeing, hey, here's some projects that were created during the Arizona Blockathon. Would you be interested in working with us to move this forward? So, yes.
So I think, there's a lot of knowledge base around the folks here. So one of the comment I wanted to make was there are different people at different levels of actually using the technology. And going forward, having a snapshot, the virtual machine, Nave coin, or some of the contract piece that earlier was talked about. There are lots of pieces to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So in this kind of setting, if there are already some type of base virtual machines already set up with some of the softwares that we could utilize in this kind of hackathon. So setting up the development environment becomes less important, and actually focusing on the problem and the solution that we're trying to build will become, and then when we come back into this kind of hackathon, we have actually utilized some of the VMware instances out there that are already pre-packaged. Then we can build on top of it.
So maybe putting some like the Sub-G coin, the Naive coin, and maybe some of the smart contract stuff. Smart contract's already there, but the Naive coin and the Sub-G coin and Docker containers so that people could access them and play around with them, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so one of the ideas for the next one, and we were kind of hoping, so a couple of us are here from a company in town called CryptoPal, myself and Kunal, and Nauman, who was here earlier, who we're kind of working on building out infrastructure that makes some of this type of stuff a little bit easier for like rapid prototyping, for integrating with existing services. The idea would have been to have certain APIs and SDKs already ready, and you just start building out your ideas a little bit quicker. So hopefully by the next time, we'll have something like that ready for you.
Thank you.
So what I would ask everybody to do is, if you haven't done so already, send me your email so I can add you to the Slack channels and we can continue this conversation and maybe look at getting together maybe in a week or so and having another session, an hour-long session or whatever, and seeing what the interest is in moving forward. So I'm going to tentatively.
One thing to add.
Yep.
A second. Anyone considering moving forward and actually productizing these things, turning it into a real live service, I would strongly encourage you to spend some time next door at the Cyber Warfare Range and do some wargaming and some adversarial analysis. Great ideas. I really like the drive and the thought behind this, but there are some implications to some of these. If you're not familiar with Cambridge Analytica and some of their work steering the public, and it can be done with data and the recent Strava leak and some others, there are ways things that you build can be used against you. So come over, toss those around before you deploy this globally. I would like to make sure that you're on the news once promoting a great product, not twice when you're the cause of the next major breach or some big global financial meltdown. So we're happy.
Well, I think that's a great opportunity that's kind of unique to this location is we can do some rapid prototyping, which is basically what we did today, do a little bit of testing, put it in people's hands and see, get some initial reaction, and then work with the cyber warfare range to harden it so that it's.
I would say spend 5 or 10 minutes with us first, so you don't waste a lot of time. Security is not something you can paint on. Security is something that's intrinsic to the design of the system. So you need to, going back to what we talked about formal methods earlier, you need to have a really full and concrete understanding of what is the problem, what are you trying to solve, what needs to be solved, and ideally what's been done, so know where their advances and their shortcomings were, and then what are you trying to do to solve that, and understand that in really intimate detail. When you've got those two down, a lot of the rest will kind of fall into place. Because most people just breeze past that. Oh, we're going to do this. And it sounds really simple and great, but break that problem down. What are all the sub pieces? What are all the finer points? So anyway, it's amazing what you can get done in 10 or 15 minutes. We've got a ton of people over there that are ready to rip stuff apart, but constructively to get you thinking about that so you're not wasting time on the parts you should be, and free you up to spend time on really building something solid.
So Lisa, you have thank you, Leo. You have a question.
The video, if it would be accessible to us, or
No, the video is completely accessible right now. So it's on, you can go to the Desert Blockchain website. All the videos are on the front page for review.
They're uploaded to YouTube. And they're all there.
Yeah, you can watch it. So the takeaways are sign up for Slack. Let's go ahead and continue the conversation. We've started something. This has been absolutely amazing. I mean, look at what has been created in basically 3-4 hours. Pretty astounding.
Yeah, it's quite impressive. And if anybody needs to get in contact with me in terms of like technical capacity, please do sign up for that Slack channel. It's probably going to be the easiest way to keep a fluent conversation going. It's something that hasn't quite been leveraged yet for the other kind of blockchain initiative here. But I would like to have that kind of going on here with all the kind of technical capacity that's in the room. It'd be great to have a fluid conversation.
Yeah. So sign up for the Slack channel, number one. Number two is, tentatively, let's say another, maybe we can get together over at Canyon 49 out on the patio a week from Monday. Give this a little bit of time to settle in, get some communication going on Slack, and then look at, and I'll be creating a new event, another Arizona Blockathon for Saturday, April the 28th, and pretty much the same format. And everybody that's participated in this one has first rights to the next one for sure. So, does that sound good? Yes, Nathan.
I just want to say thank you, Jay and Jason and everyone else that helped set this up. I think it's fantastic community.
All right, yes.
I would say something too. I'm working on a project. I told you earlier, like I was raised by trees. My whole life purpose is to help protect trees as we digitize and, make this world more human friendly, right? So I'm working on a project right now. I've been collecting like basically edible foods, dehydrating them and making these really amazing tea blends. And I created a cryptocurrency that you can purchase to buy the tea blend. And I'd like to give you guys these Ethereum tokens, they're ERC20 called tea vouchers. So if anybody wants one, I'll put my address, my email address on the board. You just send me your Ether address and I'll send you something.
Well, Andrew, why don't you sign up for the Slack channel and circulate that, and let's
do that.
You can,
Okay.
I mean, you can certainly put up your email address, but let's start to utilize the Slack channel as a way to connect, communicate. We're starting to know what our various interests and talents and capabilities are, and let's continue this conversation. So thank you very much. Really, really awesome.
Ready?